breath. My grandfather was in the war to end all wars. He never said anything about it, except one day he said most of the men went to get away from their wives. He had been a stretcher bearer, going out into no man's land and bringing in the dead and the wounded. Death came for him one day, drifting across the trenches with the mustard gas, burning his eyes and blistering his skin. It turned his breath to froth and ate away one whole lung and half the other. He came back with half a lung. But he cheated death. The doctors gave him a year to live, and when he survived that, they gave him another 5, then 10. He breathed for 50 more, and it was the doctors who died. Slowly, carefully was how he went. A frugal man, conserving strength, rationing every breath. But he accomplished much as any other man more prodigal with breath. He worked, he married, he built a house, he raised children, he saw grandchildren born. Doing it all slowly and carefully, measuring every breath. When he was dying, for no reason that anyone ever understood, my grandfather, who was not a religious man, said, "My cup runneth over." Maybe it was because he had done as much with half a cup as most men do with 2. Thank you. And now another poem about death. And this one is called At the Morgue. It's quite a long poem. I never knew where the morgue was before. I never had to go there before. In Melbourne at that time, the morgue was down by the river, near the wharves. Because it was a Sunday, it was easy to find a place to park. The attendants at the morgue were kind and gentle. Everyone has been kind and gentle. The police I had to talk to on the phone spoke with soft, sympathetic voices. The attendants at the morgue were 2 old men. Their manner was worn smooth as river stones by their witness of grief and shock. They spoke softly with consideration. I had to fill in a form, and one of the men stood beside me, prompting me, helping me, murmuring soothingly. There was a place on the form where I had to write how long I had known the deceased, and I couldn't think what to write. Write life, the old man gently prompted me. Write life. Then he took me into a room. It was furnished with 3 or 4 chairs and a table. Set in one wall was a sort of a window covered with a curtain from the other side. He asked me to stand with him in front of the window. The other attendant drew back the curtain on the other side of the window. It was like a piece of theater. My sister's body was lying on a table covered by a sheet. The old man pulled the sheet from my sister's face and turned her head towards me. Her face was reddish, mottled, but unmarked. There was no sign of anguish. I began to cry, and the attendant left me. murmuring some soothing words. Take your time, he said. Stay as long as you like. At the end of the crying, I was saying, forgive me, forgive me. I went out of the room and found the old man waiting for me by the door. We walked back to the reception desk to complete the form. Are you all right now? He asked. Yes, thank you. I think so. Do you have any objection to swearing on the Bible? No, I have no objection. I took the Bible and repeated the oath after him, swearing it was my sister's body I had seen. Then I hesitated. There was nothing more to do, no reason to stay here. But I didn't want to go. The old man looked at me kindly, but expectantly, waiting for me to leave. Later, people would commiserate with me, saying what an ordeal it must have been for me to go to the morgue. But I didn't feel that at all. I was grateful. It was a chance to see her for the last time, to say goodbye, and the difficult thing was to leave, knowing I would never, never see her again. The next poem also deals with loss, but a different kind of loss, the loss of a daughter. It's called 1,000 Years of Lost Smiles. A nighttime gust of rain and cold wind whips through the door of the cross-channel ferry. As my daughter comes back inside from her walk around the deck, other passengers, already huddled down in their reclining seats, stir and groan. She takes off her raincoat and snuggles into the seat beside me. Phew, I'm glad I don't have to drive this ferry, she says. You can't see 2 feet in front of your face. I was out there and it looked like there were all these dead guys floating in the water, and they all had blood on their faces. But don't worry, she continues. It was just these little waves, and there was a red light shining from the lighthouse. But I thought I'd better come inside in case we run into a building or something. I'm scared of a lot of things, she says. When I'm on a plane, I'm scared it will crash into the sea. If I'm on a train, I'm scared another train will run into us. If I'm walking along the street, I'm scared I'm going to get mugged. After that, she started to read her book, Animal Farm. But after a few pages, she said, I don't like books that aren't real. You know, where horses talk, things like that. Anyway, why did he make the pigs the tops? In summer camp, we had to look after the pigs, and I can tell you, they weren't so smart. We had to fill up a pig trough with food, and you had to keep the pigs away from the trough while you were filling it up. So what we would do, one person would pour a little grain in the corner of the pig pen away from the trough. It fooled the pigs every time. They'd all go over to the corner and try and snuffle up all the grain. And you would think that after all that time, they would have learned that they were being tricked. So pigs aren't so smart. She put her book away and she went to sleep while the ferry cross smoothly towards France. This is like precious gold to me, these stories of her life while she grows up. The ordinariness of living with her every day is what I desire more than anything, the tiny details of her life. But I have a dream that I cannot give up against all logic and reason, that the relationship between my daughter and I can be put right, that all the lost years can be regained. As if there is some law in life or nature which states that for having suffered, you will be given more. The first will be last, sort of thing. The broken limb grows back strongest where it has been broken. I've conceived the idea of this trip to Europe as a gambler who believes that all his lost fortunes can be regained by one fabulous throw of the dice. I sit awake thinking that all may yet be saved, that a single beautiful smile can redeem 1,000 years of lost smiles. Okay, gradually we're going to get more cheerful. This poem is called The Tear. So we had a poem about smiles, here's a poem about tears. She is a woman who never cries. This is her proudest boast. I never cry. Even though I'm not her closest friend, she has asked me to go with her to the ultrasound. Sometimes, with her shaven head, she looks like a Buddhist nun. But today, her hair has grown back a little bit. She looks like a beautiful boy. Though with her pallor and her sunken cheeks, she also resembles a waif, a stray, an orphan. She is lying on her back, her jeans pulled down to show her belly. The doctor rubs some jelly and slides the sensor across her stomach. The image is projected onto a big screen on the wall. At first, all I can make out is like a pulsating blob. Then I see that there are little legs dangling from the blob. The doctor amplifies the sound, and we hear the baby's heart beating loud and fast. It sounds to me like it's beating too frantically, too hard and fast. But the doctor doesn't seem to be concerned. I notice that there is a sparkle in the eye of the beautiful boy. I see that a tear has formed there in the eye of the one who never cries. It seems that she now has the power to form a tear. One day, she will have the power to make tears fall, both her own and those of other people. Now we come to quite a cheerful poem, and it's called The Girl and the Fly. The Girl and the Fly. As far as I know, there's only one other poem that's about flies, and that is a poem by Emily Dickinson, which begins, "A fly buzzed when I died." Okay, so The Girl and the Fly. We were down at the pub, and I asked her if she had a vocation, something in life that she really liked to do, expecting that she would say she was some kind of artist, or she wanted to be a singer, or something like that, which is what everyone around here wants to be. But she said she liked to look after old people. Secretly, I was thinking, well then, why don't you look after me? Just then, a fly flew into her beer. Very delicately, she fished it out, using as tongs a bright blue plastic clothes peg that she found on the bar. The fly flew off in erratic circles, bumping into things, but it would live to swim in beer again another day. This incident convinced me of the sincerity of her compassion, which extends beyond humanity to embrace all sentient beings, even flies. Okay, how are we going here? So, because originally we'd been intending we're going to play in some video clips, we're kind of getting to the end of the poem, but here's a very long one. It's called Angel.
But we can play it. Sorry, Harris. If you like, we can play it.
Oh, okay. So
This
let me
is
just give a
what
brief.
I prepared.
Good. Good. Okay, fire away. Let's see it. Shall I briefly introduce it? I'll just say that I like writing songs. I like writing songs. So this is a song, which is also a poem.
Yeah, which one was it?
Play the one which is called What If.
Okay.
Thank you.
So can you see?
Yep, it's good. While it's coming on, I'll just say that it's a song, a children's plea for peace.
Sorry? Say it. Harris, say it again.
Yeah, the song is like children praying that peace will come into the world. And the video is a video of my daughter when she was 2 years old.
Thank you. So now we start the video.
Yeah. Are other people hearing sound, Rosita?
Sorry, they can't hear.
No, I can't hear it anyway.
Really?
Can other people hear it?
No.
Let me see. So this is the technical stuff. Interesting. This is the first time I do this, sharing this video, but normally you should hear. So let me see. Let me find out what happened here. Video. No.
I can talk a little bit while we're waiting for the sound to come.
Yes. Please.
Well, a very interesting thing was that I wrote this children's plea for peace, and I recorded the song. I recorded the song with a singer from the Philippines whose name was Cristina del Mundo, which means Christina of the world. And I think I would like to be called Harris del Mundo, Harris of the world. But anyway, the song ran for 3 minutes and 17 seconds when we'd recorded it. And then I found this scrap of Super 8 footage of my daughter, and that also ran for exactly 3 minutes and 17 seconds without any editing. So I just put it on the video.
Can you hear the sound?
Thank you. Got it.
What if we could find a way to start? Ease the pain in every broken heart. What if we could wipe the slate quite clean of every trace of hate there's ever been? What if no mother scream should pierce the night? What if no little child should wake in fright? What if we could live in harmony? What a perfect place this earth could be. What if no one ever lived in fear? Every street was safe for walking here. What if the lion lay down with the lamb, all together in the promised land? What if the bomb should cease to rend and burn? What if each soldier's face should homeward turn? What a perfect place this earth could be. Always peaceful, everyone walks free. What if we could find a way to start? Heal the wounds in every broken heart. What if every shade and hue of skin knew each other as the next of kin? What if we were no longer moved by greed? Each one sought to meet the other's need. What if we did what we know is right? Each one light a candle in the night. What if we could find a way to start to ease the pain in every broken heart? What if we did what we know is right? Each one light a candle in the night.
Okay. Thank you very much for accomplishing that technical feat, Rosita. I'm very glad we were able to play that in. Because what I like about writing songs is you have to write poems in a very traditional way with, rhymes and standardized verse forms. I like doing that. So I have one more poem. It's pretty long. And then Rosita, if you would like to, you could play in the other video clip. Is that be okay? I'll leave that up to you. So this poem is called Angel. On the 7th day of fasting, I saw an angel fall from the sky. I was walking in a field in a wintry English landscape, and I saw him fall into a mist or cloud bank in a nearby field. I ran over to see if I could find him. Two things were racing through my mind. One was, wait until I tell Emmanuel about this. Emmanuel is this friend of mine, and we always tell each other about anything exciting that happens to us, particularly anything of a spiritual nature. Secondly, I was full of dread that my longing to see the angel might drive him away. Someone I knew who had seen many angels told me that they will only come to you when you are free of desire to see them. If you are full of craving for them, it drives them away. Nothing surer. So I was full of desire, but perhaps the angel wouldn't notice, or would forgive me, or would make allowances, or something. It was my first angel after all. I came into the fog bank, and there he was. I took a good long look at him, though full of apprehension he might disappear, but he stayed. I could see him, but he seemed to be unaware of me. He was a very playful angel. He was very hard to keep up with because he went leaping and whizzing through the air. He had no wings, but he had the ability to leap effortlessly high into the air and then come down to earth again. He seemed to like leaping and bounding for no other reason than as an expression of his tremendous high spirits. I ran through the mist, trying to keep up with him. He was aged about 35, and he was wearing a brown habit like a Franciscan monk. The habit was a little shorter than a Franciscan would usually wear, coming down to his knees. He was a stocky man with a handsome, rugged face and shoulder-length, stringy blonde hair. He was oblivious to me. I longed that he should see me so that we could communicate, but it was as if he was in another dimension. At one point, he found a battered old brown hat on the ground, and he put it on his head, and he strutted about in it for the fun of it. Then off he whizzed into the sky again. Then I saw a sign on a fence which said, "Be open and pray." I tried to be more open, but how do you do that? I opened myself up as much as I could and prayed, opening my chest, but I was so excited and there was so much that wanted to come out of me that my prayer was just an incoherent jumble in my throat. That's really interesting. We lost a page of the poem somewhere. Give me a moment. Okay, but that was, yeah, the prayer was just like a jumble. There were so many words wanting to come out. It was just a jumble. But that was okay. That was my prayer. That was me. The angel stayed a little while longer, leaping and bounding. Then one of his great leaps took him far off into the sky and he disappeared. It felt like a most important dream and a milestone. There was a wonderful, joyous feeling, similar to times when I dreamed I could fly. That's all my poems. Thank you very much for all of you who attended, and I hope you enjoyed it. And now, if it's all right with everyone and with Rosita, would you like to finish with the last video clip, Rosita, or would you like people to ask me questions? What would you?
The video.
Okay, very much. Thank you for hosting this whole thing. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll mute myself.
Okay.
Thanks. So can you see?
Yep. This one is called Requiem for a Clown. Sorry about all the death poems, but kind of death is kind of on my mind at the moment. Not as a morbid experience, but as a very enlivening experience. Death is almost like a lover, like an inspirer and an enlivener. So I don't feel fear of death. I feel death is a wonderful thing.
Okay, I start.
lovers and there have been friends. To some we gave things, to some made amends. But now it's all over, the tent's coming down. By this time tomorrow the show's leaving town. Pack up the spangles and pack up the ties. Break up the ring and bring down the lights. We've packed up our makeup, put away our red nose. Don't look for us in the morning, it's the last of our shows. You'll find the keys to our van on a hook by the door. We've left it quite tidy, even swept up the floor. But now it's all over, the tent's coming down. By this time tomorrow the show's leaving town. The lions and the tigers are asleep on their straws, snoring quite gently, their heads on their paws. As we wave you farewell, we slip out of sight. We blow you a kiss as we head into the night.
Thank you.
That was sweet. That was so reminded me of my own childhood.
Oh, really? In what way
Oh,
you like to
yeah.
go to the circus?
Yeah. It reminds me of a book I might have had of, I mean, I
Oh,
always loved
sorry,
circuses
what's
when I was a
happening
kid.
here now?
But
We
like
did.
the circus for me was back in the days when they had lions and tigers and horses and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, we had that too, but it reminds me of a book and the colors and the drawings. It's just so reminiscent of childhood.
Ah,
Thank you.
right.
Thank you.
It's a wonderful thing, the circus. I mean, to go to a circus and children so love it. They so enjoy it. They're so transported into a miraculous world. It's just the most beautiful.
You're muted, Harris.
Who?
Harris is muted.
Oh,
He's-
well, I was muted too. There's nothing really going on. I like talking about the circus.
Okay. Can I just tell this little story?
Go ahead,
Because
sir, please.
we recorded that track of that Calliope playing the circus organ, and then we said, okay, we have to get a singer to record it. And there was this girl, 16-year-old girl in the studio, and she was there for work experience, you know, a 16-year-old schoolgirl. And she said, I can sing. And we said, oh, can you really? And we said, but we also need somebody who can whistle. She said, I can whistle. And so she did it. She was so lovely. She was so nice.
That's
And
adorable.
she did it. She sang well and she whistled and she also played the clarinet. So we said, if we ever need anyone to play the clarinet, we know where to go.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that story.
Very sweet girl.
I love
She's
the,
a
angel one.
go-getter.
I liked all of your poems, but I think the angel one really got to me. And
Really?
the moment in which he found a brown hat
Yes.
and
Crazy.
then started about,
Yeah.
I absolutely loved that.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's always those funny details, isn't it? That
Yes.
make things,
And
you know.
the fact that he took absolutely no notice of you at all.
I know. But that detail about the hat, let me tell a little Bapak story since we're also with members. You know, Bapak speaks of this experience one time where he drank the sea. And you think, wow, you know, he drank the sea. Did he really? And then he says, and when I burped, it tasted of salt water.
Yes.
So you know it had to be a real experience.
Yes.
You know what? That reminds me of another of Viking mythology with Thor,
Oh yeah.
where they were challenged. A couple of the gods were he was challenged with a couple of things to do. So the guy gave him an elk's horn to drink from, or a bull's horn, sorry. And he says, "Finish this drink, and you'll win this contest." The Thor, being a big heavy drinker, said no problem at all. But every time he drank from it, it would rise up. But the thing was about it was that he was the giant god was making him drink the sea, so he never finished it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, apparently Bapak finished it, and it reminds me, when scholars study the Bible, they have a thing called the test from embarrassment. The test from embarrassment means if there's something in the Bible that seems strange or doesn't reflect well on the people in the Bible, then it's likely to be true. So the story that Peter denied Jesus, people say, yeah, that's bound to be true, because you wouldn't put that in because it's like very embarrassing for Peter.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
you're going to play the same. I've interviewed a lot of Subud people, and whenever they're telling me their spiritual experiences, I always apply the test from embarrassment, which means that when people tell you spiritual experiences, the true ones, there's always some detail in it that's really weird and strange and that no one would make up. And so that story about Bapak, that's my touchstone. No one's going to tell a big spiritual experience and then say I burped seawater. It's just, it's the proof.
That's
Okay,
right.
yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Anyone got any questions? I'm enjoying this now.
Oh,
you all-
finally,
I just read recently
wish I
about
knew you all.
burping. I just read
Burping?
recently about burping in a book that I'm reading. I think it's The History of Subud by Harlina
Right.
Longcroft, the second
Yeah.
volume. And it was saying that burping, because Bapa would burp in the latihan, and that it was a really high spiritual experience or something. I never could quite understand that. I haven't reached that level of spirituality.
Right. I'm going to try harder. I've never burped in Latihan.
Well, one member, a former member of our group, did burp a lot, and I always thought it was
Right.
really awful. So,
Right. Now we could talk about funny Latihan experiences that people have. Like, I remember this guy in England, and his Latihan used to consist of reciting train timetables. You say things like, Paddington
Oh, yeah.
Station, all out, or the next train is for Bristol.
Yeah,
And I knew
Harris.
another man who used to bring a whole lot of flutes into Latihan and play flutes.
Harris, I am always interested in the creative process. So how is it
Yes.
for you, this writing? How does the stories comes to you, or how is it for you, this process of writing?
First of all, I love writing.
Mhm.
And I have never been more creative in my life than I am at the moment. I mean, these poems were
Really?
not very recent ones, but I am so creative now. And I mean, I have to come back to this thing. Death is so enlivening. And I'm not only one experiencing this. Recently, I've been in communication with a man who was like a Subud member, 90 years old, and he was always angry and cross and complaining about this and that and always writing the same thing over and over. Now, it's like, oh, he is so
Really?
loving, and his writing is now so creative. He sends me all these poems about sex, which, before you would never have
Good
thought
on
he had
him.
any. Yeah, it's like total opening up.
Love it.
Death brings this total opening up and preparation for, crossing over.
Mhm.
The most wonderful experience. And I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to die tomorrow. I might go on for another 20 years, still causing plenty of trouble. But, it's just wonderful. Wonderful. Like I used to feel good because I said to myself, I'm not very afraid of death. But now I like, death, you are so great.
So how is it
Did
for
anyone
you?
hear my phone go off before? Sorry?
Sorry?
My phone went off before. and it was the call to prayer. So we should all now be praying, you know, or maybe you don't need to pray. Maybe it was just the time for me. I had such an Islamic Ramadan this year, and I've now started to try and observe the 5 prayer times. So nobody ever rings up, but now 5 times a day I get calls on my phone. It's wonderful. I feel I have so many friends.
Were you raised a Protestant, Catholic?
Catholic.
Yeah, I myself, I don't like saying Catholic. I like saying Christian because there's some shady stuff there.
Yeah.
So when did you decide to take the jump, so to speak?
Well, I started to become a bit discouraged with Catholicism when I was about 13 years old.
Yeah, it doesn't take long to find out something's a little screwy there.
Yeah, when I joined Subud, I had some very good experiences that made me feel okay. Like it didn't make me want to be a Catholic again, but it took away all the resentment that I had about being a Catholic. But just before Ramadan this year, someone recommended to me a book called Heart Turns, and it's a wonderful book about Islam. For a Western person, it gives you a very wonderful presentation about Islam, a very, very positive presentation. It's a collection of stories about repentance in the Islamic tradition. And that's part of the theme, but just apart from that, it's like a window into Islamic culture. And amongst the 99 names of God in Islam is one which says, God, the opener of closed doors. And my life, ever since reading that book, has just been one closed door after another opening up. It's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
Great.
And Harris, how is this when you spoke about that you haven't been so creative since now, and also that there's
Yeah.
how can I say it in English? In the eye of death. I mean, you're getting older, but how is it? How inspired death yourself? What is the connection between this getting closer to death and being creative? What do you mean with that?
It's kind of a mystery because, like, there are many stories. Like, there's one by Dostoevsky. You know, Dostoevsky was going to be executed. They took him out. They pointed a gun at his head. At the last minute, they didn't kill him. So after that, he felt very energized. Well, nothing dramatic has happened to me like that. It's just like a flowering at the end of life. And I have more.
Wow.
I'm going to be a stand-up comedian. I'm seriously.
I have seen you. I've seen you. You
Yeah.
are fantastic, Harris. Really, you are fantastic stand-up comedian.
Yeah. Now I'm going to take that out to the world. I'm taking it out to the world.
Yes. Wow.
And
You're
yeah,
born
absolutely. This morning I recorded one of the songs that go into it. Because the show is called Girls From. And then whatever town I'm performing in, I put in that name. So I live near a town called Ukai, so we have Girls from Ukai. And then I live near Byron Bay, we have Girls from Byron Bay. Every time it's a different title, but actually it's the same girls. We just changed where they came from. And it's a lot of fun.
So when are you going to write some funny poems?
I have some. Mostly, I tell you what, these stories in my comedy routine are really funny and outrageous. Outrageous. A lot of people, people will say, how can he write about that and still think he's a Subud member? Really, it's going to be so shocking. You won't believe it.
Oh, I want to hear. I want to hear.
Well, I can't give you a whole routine now.
If you don't mind, I'd like to interject. I feel like I might have religion is personal, and I didn't mean to offend you. I was just curious.
No, I don't mind. I don't mind. I'm very interested in religion, and particularly part of this whole flowering late in life has been this opening up of Islam, of the culture of Islam. I mean, I've always been interested in Islam, but I went to a whole new level after I read that book. My comedy routines are mostly about my sins and my sexual adventures and misadventures. And yesterday I was reading some Islamic literature, and it said, if you repent of a sin, you should never talk about it publicly. And I thought, oh, there goes my whole comedy career.
Yeah, there's your act.
But
Luckily, you're
then,
not a Muslim.
but then, oh well, that's a moot point. But then I read on a little bit further, and it said, however, you can talk about your sins publicly if there is a benefit. And there are two benefits. The first benefit is to show that misbehaving has consequences, right? And we should be aware of consequences. So that's one reason, telling these stories, but in a way that may be helpful to people, instructive to people. But the second thing is beautiful, and I'll just end on this because nothing can exceed this. Because the second benefit is to make people laugh. And laughter has to be good. And so I read this wonderful hadith about Muhammad. As you know, Muhammad, one of his relationships was with a woman called Aisha. And this is very controversial, but let's forget about the controversial part. When this young girl, Aisha, when she was still a little girl, she was living in Muhammad's house. One time, Muhammad went on a journey and he came back and he came into the room where Aisha was and she was playing with her dolls. And in Islam, as you know, you're not allowed to have images of living people or creatures, but there's one exception, and that is little girls are allowed to have dolls. So he walks into the room and he says to Aisha, "What are you doing, my dear?" And she says, "I'm playing with my dollies." And Muhammad said, "Yes." And he picked up one of the dolls and he said, what sort of doll is this? And she said, "It's a horse." I said, "Oh, okay." And he said, "What are these things hanging off the side?" And she said, "They're wings." And Muhammad said, a little bit kind of superior. He said, "A horse with wings?" And Aisha said, "Yes. Didn't you know that the Prophet Solomon had 2 horses with wings?" And at that moment, Muhammad laughed heartily. I think that's a beautiful story. The Prophet instructed by a little girl, and he loved it and he laughed.
Yeah, that's a nice story.
It's a beautiful story.
Can I just
Do-
ask what you were
Yeah.
saying about in Islam, you're not allowed to have what? Images,
Well,
dolls? What? I'm not
well,
sure.
Pictures.
I mean, I'm not an expert on Islam, but the general
Pictures of people?
understanding. Hmm?
Pictures
Yeah,
of
like
people? Or?
I shouldn't be making any pronouncement about Islam, but I think it's generally understood you're not allowed to have. I don't know how contemporary Muslims get around this because obviously they do have images. They must take photographs of each other and so on. But a general ruling or a strict ruling is you're not allowed to have any images. Like you can have a picture of a mosque on your wall, but if the picture shows any little people going to the mosque, then you can't do that according to the strict law.
Oh.
But there is this one dispensation: little girls can have dolls.
Mm-hmm. Is that why they don't have photographs or drawings or pictures of Muhammad?
Generally speaking, I think you're right.
It's because of praying. So it's because of you don't make a picture of God or of yourself because it's so big you can't imagine it. And also when you make a picture of the Prophet, then it's a saying that you can't put it in a picture, you have to leave it.
There is a picture of, there has been drawings of Muhammad in the Quran.
But I think we shouldn't try and get off into.
All right,
Yeah, I know.
Islam.
I just wondered because I don't ever talk. I never talk to anybody about this.
I'm just recording.
Because I'm certainly not an expert.
I'm still recording, and we have to decide where I should cut this. Should we show it to the public or not? So I'm just recording.
Yeah,
Whoever's in charge.
Not a problem for me. I don't think we've said anything offensive to anyone yet. But as far as I'm concerned, for myself, I feel that story I told about Muhammad and Aisha and how he laughed when she corrected him about horses with wings. I don't know. I think maybe that's a good point to end. I don't think I have anything better than that to say.
Okay, so then
Should we wind up, do you think? Thank you very much. I am really grateful that all you people came and that, and particularly Rosita, that you did so well to introduce those video clips and so on. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
I appreciate your poems, your songs. It was very nice. It was lovely to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Next
Harris.
Friday,
Goodbye, everyone.
next Friday, it's an English poet, Marius Gross. Hope to see you there. Thank you, Harris.
Okay.
I've enjoyed it
Bye, everybody.
enormously.
Thank you
Bye.
very
Take
much.
care. Have a good
Bye,
night.
Laura. Bye, Laura. Great to see you.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.